A new twist has emerged in the war in the Middle East that could change everything. The new leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, has officially agreed to negotiations with the United States of America. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi sent a secret message to Donald Trump's special envoy, Stephen Witkoff, stating that Khamenei is requesting to go ahead with talks to end the war. Publicly, Iran is putting forward rather tough demands for ending the war, including recognition by the US of an act of aggression against Iran as well as the payment of reparations. At the same time, the US rhetoric has changed significantly. Trump stated that the US expects to take part in governing Iran after the end of the war. In other words, essentially, Trump announced the creation of a joint administration of Iran with the participation of Washington. In this case, the Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for 20% of the world's oil shipments, would be controlled simultaneously by both the United States and Iran. At the same time, the United States publicly highlighted exactly who they see as the president of Iran, with whom the US could make deals in the future. They say let Ayatollah, the supreme leader, formally remain, of course, but another person should become the diplomatic leader of Iran. Meanwhile, Iran is attacking Israel, showing exactly how it feels about Trump's statement on the ceasefire. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I want to ask you to support the work of this YouTube channel by subscribing or with your donation or sponsorship on YouTube. All links and details are in the video description, and I appreciate any support. Please wait until the episode ends. And also, subscribe to my Telegram channel Peachy News. The link to it is also in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, Israeli sources claim that the new supreme leader of Iran, Mujtaba Khamenei, has agreed to negotiations with the United States of America. The Israeli publication Indirect writes that Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, who publicly says, "No, what are you talking about? There are no negotiations." No, he sent a secret message to Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, which said, quote, "We have received the consent and blessing of the supreme leader Mujtaba." The publication emphasizes that after Trump announced negotiations that could lead to a deal, Iran initially denied it, saying, "No, there will be no negotiations and there aren't any." And now, of course, many have seized on this message. But here's an interesting point, because technically both Donald Trump and Iran are right. Trump is right when he says that negotiations are underway, and Iran is right when it says that there are no negotiations with Washington. And here, let me explain. The fact is that Iran and the United States have been negotiating through intermediaries in recent days. Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and Pakistan are now formally communicating with the Iranians and then passing this information on to the Americans. Then they receive information from the Americans and pass it on to the Iranians. So, technically, Trump is right when he says that negotiations are taking place. Technically, the Iranians are also right because they are not conducting any direct negotiations with the Americans. They are negotiating with Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan. And then they pass something on to the Americans, although, as you understand, it all looks like a clever diplomatic game. But literally today, a phone conversation between the Iranian minister Araghchi and Witkoff, with Kushner taking part, showed a different picture. In Iran, they finally admitted that they are indeed holding negotiations. Moreover, they are now preparing for direct talks. An Iranian official confirmed that Mujtaba Khamenei has taken the place of his deceased father, and he emphasized that the heir, quote, approved the swift resolution of this matter if our conditions are met. Indirect writes that Israel was not involved in the negotiations and learned about their existence by chance. There is nothing surprising about this. This isn't the first time Trump has played behind-the-scenes games behind even his closest allies' back. Well, I mean, imagine that the US and Israel are waging a war together, but Trump suddenly makes contact with the Iranians and didn't even bother to inform Israel about it. At the same time, Reuters reports that Tehran has clearly stated what demands Iran might put forward. 3 high-ranking sources said that Iran's position in the negotiations has significantly strengthened since the start of this war. According to them, due to the growing influence of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on decision-making, Iran will demand significant concessions from the US if the negotiations become serious. In any negotiations with the US, Iran will insist not only on ending the war, but also on conditions that are likely to be unacceptable to Trump. According to sources, these demands will include guarantees against new military strikes, compensation for damage during the war, and formal control over the Hormuz Strait. In other words, in effect, the Americans would have to acknowledge that the Hormuz Strait almost belongs to Iran. By the way, you can actually charge money for ships passing through. They also noted that Iran will refuse to discuss any restrictions on its ballistic missile program. By the way, this was Tehran's principled position even during the previous negotiations. Iran also held preliminary consultations with Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt about the possibility of preparing negotiations with the US to end the war. It is reported that direct talks to end the war may take place as early as this week in Islamabad. And here's an interesting point. Iran will send both the Speaker of Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, and the Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, to participate in these negotiations at the same time, warning that the final decisions will still remain with, and here one might say, the Supreme Leader of Iran, but no, with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. But it is Ghalibaf, that very Speaker of the Parliament, whom Washington is now highlighting as an acceptable leader of Iran for them. They say, let Ayatollah remain, that's your spiritual tradition, but make Ghalibaf the actual leader and we can come to an agreement. But then Donald Trump bursts in and declares that the US expects to take part in governing Iran after the war ends. He stated, and I quote, there will be a very serious regime change in the Islamic Republic. It is possible that a joint leadership involving Washington will be established. In this case, the Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for 20% of the world's oil shipments, will be controlled by me and Ayatollah. Trump also added that the US would like to choose a leader for Iran themselves, just like in Venezuela, where Vice President Delcy Rodriguez replaced Nicolas Maduro after he was captured by the Americans. And here, the Americans are once again hinting at the Speaker of Parliament, Ghalibaf. At the same time, Israeli sources report that the US expects to end the war on April 9th. This will allow Trump to arrive in Israel on Independence Day and receive a state award. But, as Donald Trump himself once said, in negotiations, the one who loses is the one who shows first that he really needs them. Well, both sides have already shown their attitude toward the negotiations. Iranian media report that on March 24, the US and Israel allegedly attacked Iran's energy infrastructure in Isfahan province and in the southwestern city of Khorramshahr. Despite the fact that on March 23, Trump stated that after productive negotiations with Tehran, he ordered the military to suspend strikes on Iran's power plants and energy infrastructure for 5 days. At the same time, on Tuesday, Iran launched a new series of rocket attacks on Israeli cities, and the intensity of the war is not subsiding. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, I would be grateful. You can do this through donations, subscriptions, cryptocurrency, or YouTube sponsorship. All the links and details on how to do this are in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.